Hey guys, welcome to OBC Academy. This is your Sushant sir. We'll start today's topic. That's our first video of this chapter, private, public and global enterprises. Before starting this video, make sure you subscribe. Not only subscribe, ring the bell notification so that every time we upload new video, you'll get notification. Okay, simple as that. And we'll move on to this chapter, chapter 3. Okay, let me start this chapter by introducing what's today's topic. Today we'll discuss about private companies or public organizations, sectors and global enterprises. These are the three things which are going to learn, but we'll neglect most of the part of private organization because it is now very related to this chapter. Private organization is already discussed in the last chapter, so we'll start with the public and global enterprises and we'll discuss these two topics deeply. First of all, however, we have to start with these two types, that is private sector and public sector. These are the two major sectors which exist in Indian economy. So what is the first thing? Private sector. Private sectors are the sector which is owned by private individuals. You may ask now, who are private individuals? Private individuals are the individuals which we discussed in the last chapter again. Which is the chapter? The forms of business organization. In that we discussed sole proprietor, partnership, joint Hindu family business, cooperative society. These are called private individuals who are private members, and they usually get money from the private persons and they usually spend from their earning or by their savings. The money which they get is not from government. And other thing, the important thing, that is these private organizations are not owned by government. Simple as that. Very simple. What is private organization? Means it's an organization of individuals which are owned by like private persons or sole proprietor, partnership, joint Hindu family business. These types of business is not owned by government. Its funds are generated from the individual persons, not from government. That is called private organization. Moving on to the next important thing, the very important thing, start from here, that is public sector. From here we'll discuss about the topics one by one. So the first topic is public sector. What is public? By this image you may already guess public companies or public organizations are called public sectors. That's 100% correct. But we already know what is private sector. We have to alter some of the things. That is, individuals own in private sectors, but here government own public sector, partly or fully. I'll tell you how you should write an answer. Public sector is a sector which are owned by government. That means central government or state government. Their earnings will be deposited to the government treasury and their expenses are taken out from government treasury. So this is completely owned by government and government control these kind of business. Like usually you may all know, like large type of organizations are known called public organization, and they usually build these kind of stuff, dams, buildings, roads, which usually take 6 to 10 years to build a project. So these kind of construction or this kind of type or this kind of project will be handled by public sector, because public sector never make money out of business. Their main concentration is to give at affordable price, just like a cooperative society, not as much as cooperative society, but their intention is to minimize the cost with the private players in the market. Moving on to the whole bird view of this chapter, that is Indian economy. In Indian economy, actually this slide tell you what we are going to discuss today. First of all, we have two types, private sector and a public sector. In the private sector, right hand side, we have sole proprietor, partnership, joint Hindu family, cooperative society and company. These are all discussed in the last chapter, so make sure you watch the last chapter first and come back to this chapter. But now we'll discuss in private sector only the one thing, that is multinational corporation. Okay, that's the only thing we'll discuss in the private sector, and that too in coming videos, not in this video. And here we'll discuss about public sector. In the public sector we have three types: departmental undertaking, statutory corporation and government companies. These are the three things which we are going to discuss today's video, and in coming videos we'll discuss about statutory and government companies. Okay, now we'll discuss about departmental undertaking. If anybody asks the three types of public sector, those are departmental undertaking, statutory undertaking, government companies. So these are the three types of business organization which we have in a public sector. Okay, starting with as usual, first heading, that is departmental undertaking. What is departmental undertaking? These types of organizations have separate department and controlled by the ministry, and these types of organization get funded. That means the money which they are getting from directly government, it may be central government or maybe state government. Like example, the Indian Railway is the best example, and we have Post and Telegraph Department, okay, Postal Department. So these are the main examples. Simple as that. It is managed by government. It is run by department, separate department in the ministry. So the funding which they get are either from central government or government. Okay, the first feature is the funding. How they get funding? These type of organizations are directly funded from government treasury. Whatever the income they generate in this kind of organization will be directly deposited to government treasury. Whatever the money they are spending, that will be given from government treasury, and whatever the income they get, that will be directly deposited to government treasury. So simple as that, the first feature. And moving on to the second feature, that is auditing. The audit which in these organizations are done by government. So government will look after the audit because they will provide money to spend, and they have absolute right to check their accounts. So government will go through this audited process and all. Moving on to the next one, that is employees. Here the employees or workers are called as government employees. The recruitment and other things, staffing process will be conducted from a government department, and government will hire these people and provide job for them. So here the employees are worker called as government servants or government employees. Moving on to the next one, that is division. Here in this type of organization, it has a separate major division. Like if we talk about a railway, it has a separate major division. When we talk about post and telegraph department, it has a separate division and head. If we consider an example of railway minister is in charge of our railway department. So here that control will be done by the ministry direct itself. It has separate division and it has a separate control over the activities. Moving on to the next one, the accountability. What is accountability? Accountability is answerability. Because its management is directly under respective ministry, they have complete answerability for the minister. So here the management is complete answerable to the minister. If we move on to the merits, the first merit is, as because it has a separate department and it is controlled by the minister, this undertaking will makes easy to monitor and oversee these activities. It's quite easy because it has a direct control of ministry, and this is how parliament is look like in other country, and this is what parliament is look like in our country. Okay, it happened quite a lot of time. Moving on to the next point. Public can ask question, public can raise question, because it is run by the minister. As it is run by the minister is elected by general public, so public has a high degree of accountability, and as it is responsible for direct minister is responsible for the general public, so it has a high degree of public accountability. Moving on to the next one, the revenue. Whatever revenue they earn, that is directly given to the government treasury, government account, and whatever the expenses which they are making, that will be sent through government treasury. That means government treasury will pay for that. Moving on to the next one, when it comes to national security, this is a good form, since because it has a direct control over a ministry, you can take decisions at a fast moment, so it play a very good role. You don't need to ask every now and then, because ministry is head for this department. Ministry will take over in charge, and he will control the business, or he will control the activities, so he will supervise and monitor the activities. Moving on to the next one, that is limitation. The first limitation, this type of departmental undertaking fails to offer freedom which these companies are required. It suffers from interference from the minister and top level management for the working. So the first disadvantage is this. And moving on to the next one, it doesn't have that much of flexibility. Like in order to run a business or in order to run an activities, departments heads has to give power. Here departmental head not allowed to make any independent decisions, like without approval or without concern. This makes like lack of flexibility. You have to go for the minister, asking for the minister for the permission. It may delay situation. You cannot judge quickly and you cannot take action quickly. Moving on to the next disadvantage, it suffers from red tapeism in day-to-day work activities. You cannot make any action until it's processed through formal procedures. Like if manager tells you to do, you have to do, and you cannot do whatever you want. First, it will start from the ministry, then it will come to the management, then it will come to the IAS officers, and that will come to the workers. So it has a red tapeism, and that is not free at all. It has to come towards, it has to go through a proper channel. Moving on to the next disadvantage. These types of organizations are very insensitive. They're very neglect towards the customer. They won't have any concern about the customers because most probably they'll be monopoly in this kind of business. So they'll never care about services which is providing to the customer. They'll always be insensitive towards this kind of product or services which these company provide. Moving on to the next one. These type of organizations are maintained by civil servant and government officers. Sometimes they may not have an expert idea about these kind of management stuff because they came from other background, and these kind of management required a huge talent to improve these kind of organizations. So this makes slow, or this may not work effectively every time.